Economic development happens when money comes from outside a region into the region.
It's our job to serve people and to make their lives better.
I spend a lot of time in Garfield County, Enid in particular.
That's probably one of the hardest things, to get the good title.
Everyone deserves help.
And he's been very instrumental in trying to make this deal work out.
We're basically self-insuring 100% of the loss.
Now having a new measurement tool to make certain we're ready.
My old friend.
Some girls have even led adoption drives for local rescue agencies.
I want to try to focus on the things out of life that are positive.
City Connections begins right now.
Welcome back to the Enid Television Network studios and our show today, City Connections. Thank you for joining us. I'm Steve Kime with the City of Enid. We certainly appreciate you taking time to view our program today. And on a side note, I just received a couple comments about some of the programming on ETN, and thank you for your feedback. Your feedback and suggestions are important to us, so thank you for reaching out to us and let us know what type of guests that you'd like to have. And today we have an all too familiar guest representing District 19, Senator Roland Pederson. Roland, Senator, it's good to see you.
Glad to be here.
You've been to the studio here numerous times, and we appreciate you being accessible. And you seemed a little... the legislative session is over with, and now you can kind of breathe or whatever. So thanks for being here today. And just a reminder to everyone, Senator Peterson represents citizens in Garfield, Alfalfa, Grant, Kay counties. If I've left anybody out, let me know. And so the question is, you were elected in 2016. Here we are roughly 3 years later. Does the job get any easier for you as a senator? And if it does get easier, do you feel like you're able to represent Northwest Oklahoma just a little bit better than those early days?
I do. It's been the first 2 years, of course, there was a lot of different issues that we were facing those first 2 years rather than what we finally ended up in this session. But it's become easier in the fact that you know kind of who to go to where you can get some good advice. You know kind of where things are in the Capitol and who's in charge of what, and just getting more familiar with the routine of the senator is valuable, and I feel like that I have accomplished that in the last couple of years for sure, and I feel a lot more at ease of trying to represent the people of this district.
Before we went on camera, we were making sure that we were going to discuss in advance all these questions, so forgive me for this particular question, but I haven't been to the Capitol since, say, last session, say in 2018. Can you kind of give us an update on the construction? How is that going? And I know that's not on our list, but it's kind of an easy question here.
That's a good question because they hammer on that thing every day. And it seemed like in the education committee that I served on, it was usually early, like 9 o'clock, and I think that's when everybody must have gotten there and full detail of their job, because they hammered in that room to where you just couldn't hear things from time to time. But you can tell a big difference, and especially the outside of the Capitol right now. They've been all the way around it with new windows and new treatment to the walls and cement structure. And
fill in the cracks.
They've done it. It's going to be really, really nice whenever it's done.
And we know it's certainly long overdue. Well, again, our guest today, Senator Roland Pederson, representing District 19. So, Senator, we want to talk about education today. We want to talk about saving some money and a variety of things. But here at the start, why don't you just kind of give us your view of what were the successes of this last legislative session?
Well, our caucus, which is a majority caucus, a Republican caucus, and at the beginning of the session, we had 4 areas that we really were going to drill down on and improve, and that was government accountability, education investment and reform, judicial district reformation, and criminal justice reform, and then budget transparency. That was our big 4-point agenda, and we felt like that we accomplished something in an area successfully.
And that's a pretty extensive laundry list. If we could play the comparison game with the successes you just mentioned for 2019, how does that compare to 2018? Because it seemed like 2018 was so overshadowed with the teacher walkout and the teacher support and education, if you will. How do you compare successes? Would you say there's more versus last year?
Well,
Hard to gauge?
the heavy lifting that we actually did in the previous
Okay.
two sessions, by raising some revenue that has not been raised for 25 years. I mean, we were at a point where most of the agencies had been there was a lot of restrictions on what they could do because they didn't have the adequate funding that they needed. And by passing the revenue measures last year, which were not very popular at the time, we were able to do a lot more things this year in session, plus the fact that the economy, just overall economy, was better also.
And that's been a theme that I've been hearing quite a bit. When you have the money, things are a little bit easier, and we can relate that to our personal lives. When we have the funds, things are a lot easier to take care of. Well, on the other side of that coin, I'm sure that the dollar did not go as far as you wanted it, with the economy better. And I think oil and gas usually drives the Oklahoma economy quite a bit. But on the other side of that, what would you consider maybe some disappointments in regards to the session, maybe things left undone?
Well, you know, I felt like the overall achievements were far greater than what anything was,
Okay.
you know. But the one thing, there was a couple bills that I actually was author of that I thought would go, maybe that it really didn't. One was a cemetery bill, which seemed like would be something pretty easy to do. But there's a lot of plots out in some of these country cemeteries that are not available for sale because they were bought by people, you know, 40 years ago, or maybe at the beginning of statehood, and they're locked and they can't use those. And of course, that's how you perpetuate a cemetery, by selling the lots and getting so you can maintain the cemetery. And I ran a bill, Dr. Newton and I, he ran it in the House and I ran it over in the Senate. And we were going to go back 75 years if contact hadn't been made by to some of these plot owners that they could be resold. And in the Senate, it was met with like we were taking private property away from people that had bought this property, you know, 75 years ago. So anyway, that was kind of a disappointment for me. But I think we'll get the legislation is still alive. We just kind of tabled it, and we're going to move forward with it next session.
It's very interesting that you said that, because within the last 2 or 3 weeks, I was doing some investigation on some plots at Perry, Oklahoma, and I had that conversation as well with the director of the cemetery. Well, those plots have been accounted for from way back when, and even though those individuals aren't around anymore, they're hands off, and that was an interesting conversation. So I can kind of relate to what has taken place.
Well, hopefully next year we'll kind of have some of that.
Yeah.
We'll have a plan to do that. And so you know, cemeteries really need that. And it was kind of an interesting discussion that developed out of that.
And like most of us, cemetery plots are not in the top 20 list of things to do. But when it becomes in the top 20, and then you find out some of the preventive measures, you're thinking, oh, man, it's not as simple as I thought.
That's correct. That's right.
Well, Senator, I'm going to run down some of the committees that the Senator serves on. Agriculture, of course, with his background, agriculture and wildlife. There's part of an appropriations. What was the
subcommittee on natural resources? Yeah.
And then education and general government committees. Let's focus on agriculture and wildlife. Are those both together?
They are, and they're really kind of quite a bit different. Sure. But nevertheless, they're in the same committee. On the agriculture part, the committee side of it, we moved the ball on industrial hemp. We tried to align our state statutes with rules with the federal rules on growing industrial hemp. Hemp is one of those things that looks like it has a great potential. I'm not one to think out of the box a long ways, but from the resources that I've seen, industrial hemp does have a place, and I think it could really benefit this part of the country for sure, because we're in an agriculture area where we can grow things. And hemp is one of those products that looks like has some future to it. So not only from the agricultural standpoint of being able to grow it, but some of the facilities in order to process the product, make it into a usable product that has some, you know, provide jobs, and it'll be a boom for the local economy, I think.
And on a side note, with all the rain that we've received, it's held up planting of other things. So it probably would hold up the planting of hemp as well.
Yeah. But right up until now, it's kind of been grown under the restrictions of certain of universities that kind of had pilot programs, and being able to align it with federal statutes, we can go outside of the pilot programs with the hemp production.
I think from the third row looking in, the budget and the legislature is so much about the budget, but you have a wildlife committee. And I'm thinking for the person that's maybe not as connected to state government, they're thinking, wildlife committee? So what's that all about?
Well, if you really want to go to find that out for sure, ask one of your local residents, John Grondike. John is a director on that. Very passionate about wildlife and that department. It has a huge, I don't have those figures in front of me, but wildlife has a huge impact on the economy. It's not an appropriated agency, and it funds itself, and there's a lot of interest in wildlife and being able to have the ability to hunt and on public lands that are available. And then of course we try to, the rules and regulations, a lot of them are developed within the department itself, but at the same time providing some of the general rules for it, of what the game rangers can do and those kinds of things, and letting them decide on when the hunting seasons are. People always on the outside think that they know more about what we got overpopulation of and what needs to be hunted. But we need to rely really on both public and science to tell what those hunting dates and what the regulations and bag limits ought to be. But those are the kind of things that we talk about in the Wildlife Committee.
Well, Senator, our ETN teams had the privilege of visiting with John Grondike, and we garnered that real quick of his passion for wildlife here in Oklahoma. Well, let's talk about a medical topic. In this past legislative session, it said $62 million was set aside for graduate medical education program to support physician training for rural hospitals. $62 million set aside. So can you explain the use of those funds, and how's it going to impact us here in Northwest Oklahoma? Because I do know locally in Enid, there has been some challenges about attracting new physicians, new medical doctors to, say, Enid and probably to other communities as well. $62 million, is that going to help out?
It'll obviously help. Those programs like that are very expensive programs to operate. I'm not just real familiar with how Enid did that in the past. Obviously, if you can get a doctor in for training and they like what they do and they like the community that they're in, that lures them back into the community to be the doctor there. And so those kind of residency programs are very valuable to the hospital, but at the same time they're also very expensive. $62 million sounds like a lot of money. But when you disperse that statewide and try to, say how much of an impact it will have in your area, and how far it will go, why it's probably a little bit hard to figure all that out. But I know that they'll certainly look at it, and knowing that there's some money behind it, local ones.
I agree. $62 million sounds like a lot, but if you divvy it up 77 counties, it may come to 50 cents each county or something like that.
It doesn't go as far as what you would think it would go.
Our special guest today on City Connections, representing District 19, and of course Alfalfa, Grant, Kay, and Garfield counties, is Senator Roland Pederson. And when we come back from break, we're going to ask the Senator how it was like to work with the businessman as our new governor, as in Kevin Stitt, and then ask about the kind of the discussion they had regarding the savings of $200 million. We'll address those topics and more right after this break. Thanks for staying with us on City Connections.
It's a miracle that springs forth to feed us, to clothe us, to bring us joy. A miracle prompted by rain and warmed by the sun. But few realize without healthy soil below ground, there would be little life above it. Learn more about this miracle under our feet and how we're working with farmers and ranchers to unlock the secrets in the soil.
Welcome back to our discussion with Senator Roland Pederson, representing District 19, including Garfield County. We have a new governor, and Senator, what was it like working with the businessman, Kevin Stitt?
Very, very good. I have a high marks for Governor Stitt, and the thing that I've noticed about him, I think he expected things to happen a little quicker than what they did. But being from a businessman and being a CEO is different when you're trying to move a ball, and as many balls as you got to move in government, and it just works slow, you know. And I think he probably was frustrated from time to time, although he didn't show it. He had an agenda to begin with, and I think he felt like that he accomplished what he really set out to do, and maybe he wanted to do more. But I think he's very satisfied with his accomplishments for his first year administration.
And I think a lot of us that were introduced even to city government were just kind of amazed at progress, the rolls of progress, or the rolling wheel just takes a little bit longer to get around. I'm sure that's that way in the state level. Well, towards the end of the session, there was a lot of discussion about saving $200 million. Some folks, I guess, wanted to spend it. Some thought, no, let's keep it in our safe. Tell us about just the kind of discussion on both sides on what to do with the $200 million.
Well, where we've been in a hole for so long and lack of funds, I think some of the congressmen or some of the legislators wanted to spend it, thinking that we'll have just as much next year. And a lot of people hadn't been around to serve because of term limits. They don't know what it's like to serve without having adequate funds to do that. So I think a lot of people thought that there was enough needs that we didn't need to be saving any money, whenever you got an overdue bills to pay. And so the idea was to get those bills paid and then start saving it. But we know that everything is pretty cyclical in government, and especially in our state's economy, just kind of ebbs and flows with the economy, and a lot of times it's just related to oil and gas, and so we know what it's like when those commodities are not earning the revenue that we're expecting from them. So setting that money back, I think, is a good plan. Whether you 200 million or whether it's 150 or 100 or 300, I think it was a good move to set some of it back, because we know that it's not always going to be the type of economy and revenue that we had this year.
Senator, I just learned very recently through a city council meeting that ODOT's, Oklahoma Department of Transportation, 8-year plan is back in place, and the 3-year plan is fully funded, and Garfield County is to receive $30 million. Again, it goes back to that conversation. $30 million may sound like a lot of money for one particular county, and yet you have other counties to represent as well. Overall, from a senator's perspective on all state roads and bridges, how do you think we're doing?
I think we've made some tremendous progress as far as the bridges are concerned. I think we've got a long ways to go for the road part of it. But when you talk about $30 million and the money that's actually appropriated for roads and bridges, you got to remember they're also matched with federal funds, and if you don't have the local funds to get the federal funds match, you lose out on a lot. So, although, like we said, 30 million seems like a big figure, it is a big figure whenever you can match, get triple match with the federal feds on building a road and bridge. And so those funds are very essential, and being able to fully fund the 8-year plan again, and getting some of that CRB money back that was taken because it was we didn't have the money for the general budget. So I think that restoring that helped a lot. Will help a lot with continuing our projects, and we've got a long ways to go with our infrastructure for roads yet.
Senator, this next question may not be fair to you because you've just recently completed the 2019 session. 2020 gets underway, session in February, I believe. So between today and February, what is the senator involved in? Are the committee meetings throughout the year? what would be your role, and yet you have a life at home, if you will, but you have several counties to represent.
Right. Well, you just try to be available to people at all times because different needs will show up throughout this, even when you're off session. And people just need to know how to get a hold of you. And there's always, what I enjoy probably most about the job is being able to help people get answers to questions that they have not been able to get. And I think we've helped a lot of people get those answers. And of course, that'll be ongoing and being in different meetings that I'll be asked to attend. And then trying to balance that with my full-time farming operation is kind of a challenge, but I think we've navigated that pretty well, and I hope I can continue to do that.
Well, I've learned that cattle are high maintenance.
Well,
so you have to pay attention to them. Let me ask you this. What is the best way for people to reach out to you? They're thinking he's a senator, he's office in Oklahoma City. I don't know how to reach my representative or my senator. What's the recommendation to you, a good way? And we'll have that information on the screen, but what's the best way to reach your office?
If you want to get a hold of me, I maintain an office in Oklahoma City year-round. My assistant, Angie Robinson, a lot of people have gotten to know her well. And she will make sure that I get the message. And so I instead of, you can call me on my cell phone, I really don't have a problem, but I just soon her give it to you, and then she can get the message to me, or she can have them to call me, and I try to be available all the time. So,
well, Senator, our quick visit today, I appreciate you being accessible. You've always been gracious with your time and come to the ETN studio. We've kind of exhausted our list of questions. I know we could talk much further, but I'm going to give you an opportunity, and I say this respectfully, is talk to the folks at home. I know you do a lot of speaking, but this is a great opportunity to talk to a variety of folks at one time. So feel free and take a couple minutes and just share your thoughts.
Well, I want to thank the constituents of this district for allowing me to represent you as a state senator. It's been a challenging experience. I feel like that I've gotten to know a lot of you well. I've really enjoyed being involved in the city of Enid. It's just I love the people here. I love representing them, and we're all kind of in this thing together. From a state standpoint, I consider Enid a rural area, and even though as a kid growing up, I thought it was a big city. But it is a big city with people that really care about each other, which I think really is one of the real strong points of being able to represent you in this area. So just if you have any concerns that you would like for me to address, if you want me to be at some of your meetings, my office, like I said, is going to be open, and we'll have the contact points posted to where you can get a hold of me. But again, just thank you for allowing me to represent you.
Very good. Senator, appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
And hope you'll come back and keep us updated. And anytime there's something that we need to share with everyone, you have a platform here at ETN. And thank you for joining us here on City Connections. Our special guest, Senator Roland Pederson, representing District 19. And again, the counties are Garfield, Alfalfa, Grant, and Kay counties. A busy person, but everybody at the legislature is busy. So thanks for joining us. I'm Steve Kime with the City of Enid. Until next time, make it a great day. Thanks for watching.